Can Donald Trump actually win 400 electoral votes? In this video, we're going to explore this idea by filling in the 2024 electoral map based on Trump's best case scenario if Joe Biden refuses to drop out. And so we're just going to get right into it, starting off with the safe Biden states. These are states he's going to carry by more than 12 percentage points, and you basically have only the most liberal of the liberal states. So in Biden's list of solid states, we have California, Hawaii, Vermont, Massachusetts, Maryland, the District of Columbia, and the 1st District of Maine, giving him just 86 electoral votes. As for former President Trump, he's easily going to win the states of Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North and South Dakota, all of Nebraska except for the 2nd District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, Alaska, the 2nd District of Maine, as well as Iowa and Ohio, states that Trump flipped back in 2016. They were Obama states in 2012, but Republicans have done very well in both of these states in recent years, and with J.D. Vance being the incumbent senator from Ohio, he's going to have a big impact on Trump's margin here, and that effect is also going to be felt in Iowa, another similar Midwestern state. We also have the states of Texas and Florida. Texas will be solid Republican for the first time since 2012, and Florida is going to be a solid state for the first time since the 1980s. These are two states that Trump won by pretty big margins in 2020, but they're going to expand significantly come November if Joe Biden continues to refuse to drop out. And so with these solid states filled in for both candidates, we have 219 already for Donald Trump. This is only 13 electoral votes less than the total amount that he won in 2020, and just 86 for Joe Biden. Before we continue, only 10% of you guys are actually subscribed, so please take the time to subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November. And follow me on Twitter for daily political updates. Link in the description below. We're now going to fill in the likely states for Joe Biden. These are states that he'll win by margins between 5 and 12 percentage points. They're just going to be more competitive, and Biden should be able to win these states by solid margins like he did last time, and really any generic Democrat would be able to, but just considering how poorly his campaign is going right now, it is pretty likely that if he remains in the race, states like Washington and Oregon are no longer going to be solid blue. These are states he won by 15 to 20 points. We also have Illinois, a 17-point margin for Biden last time. The polling here shows that he's not even going to win the state by 10 points. We don't even need to think about this as a best case scenario in some of these states. I mean, in Illinois, the numbers right now for multiple polls are showing us that Biden is not going to win the state by over 12 points. We also have Connecticut and Rhode Island. Biden's polling has been pretty shaky there, and his home state of Delaware. This is going to be a pretty big loss for the president. He served as a senator from Delaware for over 36 years before becoming Obama's vice president. And so with all of these solid and likely states filled in, Joe Biden stands at 139 electoral votes. As for Trump, we have a lot of states that should be really competitive, states that were among the closest in the 2020 cycle, states like North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada, a lot of these Sunbelt states that today simply are not showing close races. We're going to begin with Nevada, 6 electoral votes, a state Trump did not win in either 2016 or 2020, losing it by 2.4% each time. He would be the first Republican to flip the silver state since George W. Bush in 2004. And when looking at the polling in Nevada for the 2024 cycle, Biden simply isn't where he needs to be. He's behind by over 5 points in the head-to-head matchup between him and the former president. He was behind by only less than 3 points on the night of the first presidential debate. That margin has essentially doubled since then, and things really are just getting worse and worse for Joe Biden, and that is why Nevada is going to be likely Republican. We're seeing a very similar trend in Arizona. Trump is winning by 6% in the polls, and all the post-debate polls, as well as polls conducted during the RNC, show Trump just dominating in a state that Joe Biden carried by 0.31% in 2020. A state he won by such a small margin, it is basically impossible that he carries it again. Just look at the polling here. Arizona just simply hasn't ever been competitive throughout this entire election cycle. And right now, Trump is leading by his highest margin ever. So Arizona will also be likely Republican. We also have the states of North Carolina and Georgia, each worth 16 electoral votes, and these states generally have been very competitive in the last few election cycles. Hillary Clinton came within 4 points of winning North Carolina and just out of 5 points of winning Georgia. And then in 2020, Biden actually won the Peach State, the first Democrat to do so since 1992, but he narrowly lost North Carolina, a state that Democrats haven't won since 2008. But when we're looking at the numbers we're seeing in these two states today, it really doesn't seem like Democrats have ever been competitive here, at least for a very long time. In North Carolina, Donald Trump leads by 5.7% in the polling. Just like Arizona, just like Nevada, the state simply hasn't been competitive throughout the entirety of this election cycle. Trump's always maintained a pretty solid buffer between him and the incumbent president over the past year. And if we look at the list of polls conducted for the 2024 cycle, you would have to go back over 2 years to find any polls that show Biden performing even okay in the Tar Heel state. So North Carolina is going to be likely Republican, and so will Georgia, where Trump leads by 4% statewide. It's even worse in basically all of these states if you look at the 5-way average and include RFK Jr. and many of the other candidates that are taking more and more votes away from Biden. And just like in the other states, in Georgia, it just hasn't been close. Whenever Trump goes up, Biden goes up. Whenever Trump goes down, Biden goes down. There's been a pretty solid difference between the two candidates in terms of their support. And so Georgia is also going to fall into that likely GOP category. And the final likely state for Donald Trump will be up in the Midwest. We have the state of Wisconsin, 10 electoral votes. This was a pretty big victory for Donald Trump in 2016. It's what helped him get over the finish line, get over 270 electoral votes, and he won it by over 3/4 of a percentage point. In fact, Trump did better in Wisconsin in 2016 than Biden did when he won it back in 2020. Today, however, the former president is ahead by 3.3% in Wisconsin. It's always been the most conservative out of the 3 blue wall states, which are, of course, Wisconsin, along with Michigan and Pennsylvania. The polling has actually been pretty competitive here over the last few months, but since that first debate, Trump has taken a pretty decisive lead. And so the state of Wisconsin is going to be the final likely Republican state. And so with the likely and solid states filled in for both candidates, Trump leads 278 to Biden's 139. Next up, we have the lean states that will be decided by margins between 1 and 5 points. These states are going to be pretty competitive, but one candidate definitely has an edge, and the first and only lean state for Biden is New York. It's pretty sad seeing the Empire State in this position, especially if you're the Biden campaign. This is a state the incumbent president won by 23 points 4 years ago. Today, according to the polling, Joe Biden leads by just 7.5%, less than 1/3 his margin from the last election. And it's not just those 2 new polls that are showing this. You look at basically any poll released since October of 2023, and they all tell you the same story. New York is going to be competitive. Joe Biden is going to have to fight a little bit to win one of the most liberal states in the country. As for Trump, we have quite a few lean states, starting off with the 2nd District of Nebraska. There's basically no doubt that he's going to win it back. He won the district in 2016. And in the Midwest, we have 3 lean states. I'm going to begin with Michigan and Pennsylvania, 2 states that he flipped in 2016, becoming the first Republican to win these states in over 20 years. Michigan, he won by 0.2, Pennsylvania by 0.7. Fast forward 4 years, and Biden narrowly wins them back. However, looking at polling for 2024, Trump is on track to win Michigan by 1.7%. Biden was actually doing pretty well in the state at the beginning of the month, but since that presidential debate, his numbers have only gotten worse and worse. Trump actually led by 5 points just a few months ago, but today he leads by 1.7, and in a best-case scenario, there's no doubt that Trump will carry Michigan and Pennsylvania. We're seeing even better polling for Trump here. 4.5% is the margin, although I do expect that Trump is being slightly overestimated here. The race was very close for a long time, but Trump has really widened that gap over the last few months. He now leads by nearly a likely margin, and the reason why Pennsylvania is lean while Wisconsin is likely is just historically Wisconsin has always been more conservative. It's the only state with a Republican senator out of the three, and it's the most recent one to have a Republican governor as well. We have two more lean states for Trump, the first of which is going to be Minnesota, 10 electoral votes. Trump is going to be the first Republican to win the state in 52 years. No Democrat has lost Minnesota since George McGovern in 1972. Today, Minnesota polls do show Biden ahead on average. However, according to the most recent survey conducted by Emerson College, which is a pretty reliable pollster, we see a tie between the two candidates, and in a best-case scenario for Donald Trump, there's no way that he isn't going to win Minnesota, a state that he came within 2 points of winning back in 2016, that Biden won by 7 points in 2020. Yes, Biden did well last time, but he probably isn't going to do nearly as well this time around. Minnesota, after the debate, after the failed assassination attempt on Trump, after the RNC, is going to look a lot more favorable for Trump in the polling that comes out in the next few weeks. So it's going to be lean Republican on our map in terms of the best case scenario for Trump. And the final lean state on this map is New Hampshire with 4 electoral votes. The Granite State isn't too important electorally, but it has been competitive, most recently in 2016, when Hillary Clinton surprisingly only won the state by 0.37%. This was supposed to be a pretty easy victory for the secretary, but Trump came within less than half a percentage point of actually flipping New Hampshire, a state that Republicans haven't won since 2000. Donald Trump leads by 2 points in the most recent poll from the state. According to the average, Biden is still slightly ahead, but I mean, one of these polls conducted by Marist College was done all the way back in January of this year. When we get new numbers out from New Hampshire, Trump is going to perform a lot better. And so with all of the solid, likely, and lean states filled in for both candidates, we have 327 for Trump, 167 for Biden, 44 electoral votes that remain in play. We're now going to finish off the map with the tilt states, states that will be decided by margins less than 1%. We're going to begin with Colorado and New Mexico. Colorado is simply too blue of a state for me to give it to Donald Trump right now, even in a best-case scenario for the former president. Joe Biden won Colorado by nearly 14 points, and we saw Jared Polis, the governor, get reelected in 2022 by nearly 20 points. It's going to be a really steep uphill climb for Biden in Colorado. He leads by 6.5% in the polling, although these are pretty outdated polls. I can definitely see Colorado going down to the wire, but as of right now, I do have Biden slightly edging out a victory in the state. While down in New Mexico, as Democrats continue to struggle with the Hispanic vote, I'm going to give New Mexico to Donald Trump. We saw what happened in Florida in 2020. The Hispanic vote shifted dramatically in favor of Trump. Joe Biden barely won Miami-Dade County. However, in New Mexico, this is the only state with a Hispanic majority, and it's going to matter because those voters are moving away from Democrats, and with polling showing a pretty tight race, although these are pretty outdated polls, we're probably going to see new polls showing New Mexico to be a lot more competitive. We had a Biden internal poll that showed that Trump could win the state. That isn't on this list here, but Donald Trump is targeting New Mexico as a potential flip, and as of right now, in a best case scenario, it is possible that he flips the state. And with 3 more states left, we're going to see just how far Trump can go. Beginning with Maine, the at-large vote worth 2 electoral votes. Donald Trump actually leads in the most recent poll, and even a poll from October shows Biden barely hanging on in the state. RFK Jr. is probably going to have an impact here, and considering the fact that Biden carried Maine by 9 points, this is a pretty dramatic shift. He's not going to win the state by 6 points, but Trump can definitely win it in his best case scenario, and that is why Maine is going to be tilt Republican. Down in New Jersey, this is probably going to be the wildest flip for Republicans. It's a state that Biden carried by 16 points. Out of any state Trump has even a remote chance of winning that Biden won last time, New Jersey is definitely the one that was the most liberal in the last election. But considering the convictions that Bob Menendez has come under over the last few weeks, as well as just the fact that the Senate race is really competitive there because of Menendez, Democrats are doing really poorly, just like in New York. New Jersey is not the solid blue stronghold it once was, and Donald Trump could be the first Republican to win the state in over 3 decades. Finally, in Virginia, 13 electoral votes. They have a Republican governor now, and the polling actually shows Trump in the lead. He leads in the 2 most recent polls, and 2 polls from May and June show a tie between Trump and Biden. Now, if the election were held today, Biden would probably still win Virginia by a narrow margin, but in Trump's best case scenario, and if things continue to get worse for Biden, which honestly looks more than likely, Trump can definitely flip the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so in his best case scenario, the former president is on track to win 361 electoral votes in a landslide against Joe Biden with just 177. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November. Like this video down below and comment down below how many electoral votes you think Trump can win in his best case scenario.